Welcome to the Trudgery, a zone for true horror stories, disturbing encounters, and twisted tales that were never meant to be heard. Until now.
The following cases are based on a true story. The first search team found the note at sunrise on the third day. It was wedged under a smooth, flat stone at the edge of Red Hollow Lookout. The paper stiff with cold, but somehow untouched by the frost that coated the ground. The handwriting was shaky, but unmistakably his. "I think someone is following me." The ranger who found it said he felt his stomach drop before he even read the words, because Evan Price had already been missing for 2 days when that note was dated, and he had vanished without a trace. Evan was the kind of hiker who double-knotted his boots and carried a backup compass even on short trails. The kind of guy who left his itinerary with 3 different people. He'd gone into Red Hollow on October 12th for a 2-day solo trip. He'd done the same route before, never so much as a twisted ankle. When he didn't check in that night, nobody panicked. When he didn't check in the next morning, they did. By noon, rangers were sweeping the park with dogs and aerial drones, expecting to find him near his planned camp. But they didn't find a campsite. They didn't even find his footprints. They found the note instead. And the thing about it, besides the impossible date, is that it was written on a page from Evan's own field journal. Same paper, same ink from the pen clipped to his pack. But his pack was nowhere in sight. The second note showed up the next day. This one was pinned to a pine trunk with a snapped-off twig, like someone had deliberately placed it at eye level. The handwriting was worse this time. Letters dragged, pressure uneven. I can hear it at night. It walks like a person, but heavier. The search team paused after reading it. Nobody said anything, but they all felt the same thing. Something was wrong out there, because the night before, several rescuers had reported strange sounds, slow, deliberate thuds echoing between the trees. They had written it off as a large animal, but the prints on the forest floor didn't match anything native to the park. The ground was disturbed, but there were no tracks. It was like something heavy had moved without touching the earth. The third note appeared near a dry riverbed, tucked between 2 stones that looked recently placed. The dogs refused to approach it. One whimpered and sat down 30 feet away, staring into the trees. This note was dated a full day after the second, October 16th. "I think it can copy my voice." That was all. No explanation, no plea for help, just a warning. And here's the part most people don't hear about. That same evening, 2 hikers, completely unrelated to the search, reported hearing a man yelling for help deeper in the forest. They describe it as flat, unnatural, like someone playing the same audio clip over and over. The voice kept repeating, "I'm over here. I'm over here. I'm over here." Not louder or quieter, not closer or farther, just the same, perfectly the same, every time. By the time rangers reached the spot, there was no man, no tracks, just silence. Silence so complete, it made their ears ring. The final note was found wedged in the crack of a sandstone wall at the mouth of a narrow canyon, the kind hikers avoid because sound gets swallowed there. This one was dated October 17th, 5 days after Evan had vanished. 5 days without food, fire, or proper clothing in freezing temperatures. 5 days no human could survive without leaving something. Footprints, scraps, anything, But the final note was crisp, dry, as if it had been placed there minutes before. It read, "It's not behind me anymore. I think it's ahead of me." On the back, in handwriting so distorted, it almost didn't look human, a second line had been added. Do not trust anything that sounds like me. A lab later confirmed the note had traces of human skin cells along the bottom edge, but they didn't match Evan, and they've never matched anyone in the national database. Evan Price was never found. Search teams combed every inch of the park. They never located his gear. They never found his journal. They never found a pen. No body, no clothing, no signs of an animal encounter. Nothing. All they found were those notes, left like breadcrumbs on days when Evan couldn't possibly have still been alive. And the strangest part? Every note looked fresh, as if whoever or whatever placed them there didn't understand how time or weather works. One ranger, who asked not to be named, said something he later regretted sharing. I swear I heard someone walking parallel to us during the search. Big, slow footsteps. But every time we stopped, they stopped. And the woods got quiet. Too quiet, like it was waiting. He shuddered before adding, those notes weren't warnings. They were instructions. Evan wasn't trying to be found. He was trying to keep us away. Whatever he met out there, whatever he heard, whatever could mimic his voice so perfectly that rescuers followed it without question. It was moving faster than he could. It was leaving the notes cleaner than he could. It was using his words, his handwriting, his things. But it wasn't him, and somewhere, in the dark parts of Red Hollow, something might still be calling out, I'm over here, over and over, waiting for someone to answer. It started with a noise, something simple, something you could almost ignore. At 2:11 a.m., Clare Hartley woke to the sound of footsteps crossing her living room floor. Slow, uneven steps, like someone dragging part of their weight. She lay frozen, listening as the steps made a full circle near her couch, and then stopped. Her first thought was, I'm not alone. Her second thought was, call 911. But as she reached for her phone, the footsteps started again. Only this time, the sound was coming from behind her bedroom door. Claire lived alone. The operator picked up immediately. 911. What's your emergency? Claire whispered. Someone's inside my house. They're walking around. Please, please send someone. As she spoke, the footsteps stopped. The operator asked her to stay on the line, and Claire could hear her own breathing, shaky, too loud, echoing in her headphones. Then something impossible happened. She heard the footsteps again, but the 911 operator heard nothing. Ma'am, I need you to describe the noises, the dispatcher said. I'm not hearing anything on your end. Claire gripped the phone tighter. It's right outside my door, she whispered. But the operator only repeated, Ma'am, the line is completely silent. Within minutes, police were on their way. Claire stayed curled up on her bed, phone clutched to her chest, listening as the footsteps faded toward the kitchen. Then came a new sound, a slow creak, like someone opening a cabinet door. Then another and another. By the time officers arrived, the house was silent again. They found no intruder, no signs of forced entry, nothing out of place except for one thing. Every single kitchen cabinet stood wide open. It could have ended there. A strange, terrifying night, a one-time break-in, a fluke. But it didn't end. 3 nights later, a man named Robert Kell, 2 blocks away, also called 911. Someone's walking around my living room, he whispered. I can hear them breathing. The same dispatcher answered the call. And again, the line was silent. Police found him trembling in his bathroom with the door locked. The intruder was gone, but the chairs in Robert's dining room had been rearranged in a perfect circle. Calls started coming in more frequently, always between 2 and 3 a.m., always describing slow, heavy footsteps, always describing breathing, Too close, too loud, too human. And always on the recorded 911 audio, total silence. Not even ambient room noise, like the callers weren't transmitting sound at all. Only their voices. Investigators started calling the unknown suspect the night listener, because whatever people heard, whatever moved through their homes, it never made a sound on recording, not once. The pattern became stranger. The night listener never stole anything, never broke a window, never attacked, but victims always described the same thing. It was walking in circles. It paused right outside my bedroom door. It breathed like it was exhausted. It knew where I was, and each house had one eerie detail in common. Something subtle, almost imperceptible, had been rearranged. A picture frame turned slightly. A shirt moved from a chair to the bed. A lamp angled 2 inches to the left. Nothing valuable, nothing dramatic, but something intimate, like it had been studying each room carefully. The case escalated when police responded to the 5th call, this time from a teenager named Jonah. He lived alone with his dad, who worked night shifts. Jonah's voice on the call was nearly inaudible. "Shit, he's in the hallway," he whispered. "I can hear him breathing." But the operator didn't hear heavy breathing on the line. She heard 2 voices, Jonah's, and something barely audible, whispering Jonah's own words in perfect unison, like an echo that wasn't synced correctly. A second voice repeating him half a second behind. But officers heard none of this when they arrived. The recording was glitch-free. The audio log showed only Jonah speaking. It was the live dispatch feed that captured the second voice. And something even more disturbing, the repeat voice breathed in when Jonah breathed out, as if something was listening so closely, it was sinking to him. The final incident happened 3 weeks into the investigation. A woman named Ms. Proven called at 2:03 a.m., whispering that someone was standing outside her bathroom door, breathing heavily. The dispatcher again heard nothing. Then Proven said, "I think it's listening to me breathe." She paused. On the line, the dispatcher heard a soft exhale. Proven's. Then another exhale. Not Proven's. Lower. Ragged, right next to the microphone. The dispatcher froze. "Ma'am, did you just exhale twice?" "No," Proven whispered. That wasn't me." And then, a sudden burst of static, like the phone pressed against something. Police found Proven. Minutes later, unharmed, but hysterical, hiding in the shower. No one else was in the house, but the bathroom mirror was fogged over with breath in a room that was cold, and in the fog, someone had drawn a single ear. Just the outline, just listening. The case was quietly closed weeks later, labeled mass misinterpretation, possible audio interference, likely unrelated incidents. But dispatchers started refusing the night shift. Officers insisted on responding in pairs, and at least 6 different people from the same neighborhood reported the same thing. When they wake up around 2 a.m., they swear they can hear footsteps in their living room. Slow, dragging, deliberate, like someone pacing in a circle, like someone waiting. And if they hold their breath very still, they can hear something else, something breathing back. Detective Mark Ellery didn't believe in coincidences. Not after 21 years in missing persons. Not after the kinds of cases that stayed with him long after the paperwork was filed. But the night the call started, even he couldn't explain what was happening. It was 1:42 a.m. on a Tuesday when his phone rang, his personal phone, the number only his family and 2 coworkers had. The screen showed unknown caller. He answered. A man's voice, trembling, whispered, "Detective Ellery, I don't want to die again." There was a pause, a small shaking breath. Then the call cut out. Mark stared at his phone for a full minute. He didn't recognize the voice. The line had a strange quality to it, like the man was speaking from far away, but not physically. More like emotionally, like he was calling through panic, through cold air, through something heavy. Mark called the number back. It didn't ring. Instead, an automated voice answered. This number is not in service. The next night, at almost the exact same time, the phone rang again. Same caller ID. Same shaky breathing. This time the voice said, "You never found me." Mark sat upright in bed. "Who is this?" he asked. "Tell me your name." Silence for several seconds. Then, "You already know. You've had my case for years." The line went dead. Mark didn't sleep the rest of the night. By morning, he was digging through every cold case on his desk. 27 missing persons files, some older than a decade. He kept hearing the voice in his head. "You never found me." But the calls came too fast, too late at night, too deliberate, to get under his skin, to push him towards something. The third call came 2 nights later. This time the voice whispered. It wasn't an accident. Mark felt his pulse spike. "Tell me your name," he demanded. A wet breath, a faint rustle, like the sound of a jacket brushing against a phone. Then, "Ask her what happened." "Who?" Mark said. "Who's her?" But the line had already died. He took the recordings to the department's tech specialist, Dana. She analyzed them quietly. After a long minute, she frowned. "There's something weird about these," she said. "Weird how?" She isolated the background noise and played it back. Just a faint hum, nothing too unusual. But then she inverted the frequencies and slowed the audio. The noise wasn't static. It was water, flowing water, like a shallow river. Mark felt the chill crawl up his arms. Of all the cases he'd worked, only one involved water. A case from 2003, a young man named Peter Lang, who was last seen near Hollow Creek. His body was never found. His girlfriend, Lisa, claimed he slipped during an argument and was swept away in the current. The problem was, her story had never made sense, and she'd stopped cooperating after the first interview. That night, Mark waited for the call. The clock hit 1:40, 1:41, 1:42. His phone rang. He answered before the first vibration ended. The voice came through sounding wetter this time, raspy, strained, as if water was filling the caller's throat as he spoke. "Detective Ellery, she pushed me." Mark felt the blood drain from his face. "Peter," he whispered without thinking. A long, ragged breath. "She pushed me. I hit the rocks. I wasn't dead when I went into the water." Mark grabbed a pen with shaking fingers. "Peter, where are you calling from?" The voice at the other end made a horrible choking noise. Not quite a cough, not quite a gasp. Then, softly, underneath. The call clicked off. The next day, Mark drove to Lisa's house. She looked startled when she opened the door. Older now, exhausted, like she hadn't slept in a year. When Mark mentioned Peter's name, she flinched. "I don't want to talk about that," she whispered. "You need to," Mark said. "Someone is calling me. Someone who knows things only Peter would know." Lisa went pale. "He can't be calling you," she said. "He can't be." Her voice cracked on the last word. Mark watched her carefully. Fear was written all over her face. Not fear of Peter. Fear of being caught. "What really happened that night?" he asked. Lisa shook her head violently. "Please don't make me." Mark's phone rang. 1:42 p.m., middle of the day. Same unknown caller. Lisa froze, hand covering her mouth. Mark answered slowly. "Peter?" The voice that came through was different, clearer, angrier, colder than before. "She's lying." Lisa's knees buckled. She slumped against the wall, shaking. Mark turned the phone speaker on. "Lisa," he said quietly, "do you want to explain?" She stared at the phone like it was alive. Then she whispered, I didn't mean to push him. We were fighting and he slipped. I tried to grab him. I did, but he hit his head and the water took him. Mark swallowed hard. Peter's voice on the phone said, "No, she watched." Lisa sobbed. I panicked. I thought they'd blame me if I told the truth. The voice replied, "You never called for help." And then one final whisper, dripping with cold. She left me there. Static exploded through the speaker, sharp enough to make Lisa scream. The phone went hot in Mark's hand, too hot, and he dropped it. It hit the floor. The call ended. The forensic team finally drained the shallowest part of Hollow Creek. They found a fragment of skull, a piece of jacket fabric, and the remains of a flip phone from 2003. It was Peter's phone, waterlogged, cracked, destroyed. The number was still partially visible. It did not match the number that had been calling Mark. Not even close. Mark hasn't received a call since, but he leaves his phone on every night, volume at max, just in case. Because sometimes, around 1:42 a.m., he swears he hears it vibrate. Just once. A phantom ring, like someone is still trying to reach him from somewhere deep, somewhere dark, somewhere underneath. And he knows, on the night it rings for real, he'd better answer. When Samuel Dickerson moved into apartment 3B on Alder Street, he wasn't expecting perfection. He just needed quiet. He'd spent the last year rebuilding his life after a messy divorce, and the old brick complex was cheap enough that he didn't ask many questions. But the landlord had said one thing that stuck with him. It's an old place. It has memories. Samuel had laughed at the time. He wouldn't be laughing for long. The first incident happened on a Thursday night. Samuel had just sat down with a microwave dinner when he heard something strange, muffled shouting, somewhere in the apartment. At first, he thought he'd left the TV on in the bedroom. But when he walked through the hall, the sound didn't get louder or quieter. It stayed exactly the same. A woman screaming, a man shouting back, the crash of something breaking. Samuel froze. The noise didn't sound like neighbors, through a wall. It sounded like it was coming from everywhere at once. He checked the hallway, the living room, even outside his door. Silence. But inside apartment 3B, he could hear the argument echoing faintly, like a memory replaying inside the walls. And then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The next morning, he told himself it had to be thin walls, old pipes, a weird dream. Until the second night, he woke at 1:37 a.m. to the sound of someone crying, deep, wrenching sobs echoing right outside his bedroom door. He grabbed a flashlight, heart pounding, and yanked the door open. No one was there, but the crying kept going. From the living room now, then the kitchen, then right behind him. It wasn't directional. It was everywhere, like the apartment itself was replaying it. He stood in the center of the living room, trembling, listening as the sobs turned into gasps. Panicked, desperate gasps. And then a choked scream. Then silence. The clock read 1:42 a.m., 5 minutes exactly. The next day, Samuel went downstairs and asked the landlord about the noises. The older man stiffened. "You're hearing things?" he asked quietly. "At night?" Samuel nodded. For a moment, the landlord seemed like he might say something. Then he shook his head. "This building's old," he muttered. "Old buildings whisper." Unhelpful, evasive. Samuel walked away with a sick feeling in his stomach. But the third night was the worst. At exactly 1:37 a.m., he awoke to the sound of a struggle. Furniture crashing, a sharp slap, someone begging. Samuel bolted upright, grabbed his phone, and hit record. He wanted proof, but when he played the audio back, silence, even though he'd heard every second. He tried again the next night. Same result. The apartment was filled with noise, but nothing would record. He began searching online, local forums, police archives, anything. He found something. In 1998, a woman named Dana Rowe had been killed in apartment 3B. Domestic dispute. Her boyfriend claimed she fell. Neighbors insisted they heard a fight. The time of death? Between 1:37 and 1:42 a.m. Samuel's blood ran cold. Those were the exact minutes the noises played every night. He printed the article and took it to the landlord. The man's hands shook as he read it. "Look," he whispered, "some places hold on to what happened in them. Not ghosts, memories, imprints. The worst moments leave echoes. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have moved in?" He didn't answer. The landlord sighed. "Most tenants hear it once or twice. Then it fades. But if it's repeating nightly for you..." "What does that mean?" Samuel asked. The landlord looked away. "It means you're not hearing a memory. You're hearing a reenactment." "What's the difference?" "One fades," he swallowed. "The other means something still isn't finished." That night, Samuel didn't sleep. He sat in the dark, watching the clock. 1:36, 1:37. The apartment erupted. A woman screaming, a man shouting, a heavy thud, furniture breaking, a body hitting the floor. Samuel clamped his hands over his ears, but the sounds came through anyway. Not through the air, but through the walls, through the floor, through him. Then something new happened. Something that had never happened during any of the nights before. A faint whisper right behind him. "Help me." Samuel spun around. No one was there. But the whisper came again, this time from the hallway. "Please, someone help me." The apartment wasn't just replaying what had happened. It was asking, begging, reaching out. The next morning, Samuel went back to the case file. He dug deeper, and he found something the police had missed. Dana Rowe's boyfriend had claimed she slipped on broken glass, but the autopsy mentioned something odd. A defensive wound on her right hand. A scratch, small, but fresh. Like she'd grabbed onto something sharp while falling, or someone. Samuel checked his apartment for hours, and finally, behind a loose section of baseboard in the hallway, he found it. And finally, behind a loose section of baseboard in the hallway, he found it. A tiny metal earring, old, bent, with a faint smear of dried blood inside the clasp. A type of earring Dana was photographed wearing in a photo from the night she died. The boyfriend had always denied she'd grabbed him, but she had, and the apartment remembered. Within a week, police reopened the case. DNA confirmed the blood belonged to Dana. The boyfriend was arrested for further questioning. As for Samuel, the noises stopped. For the first time since he moved in, the nights were quiet, empty, peaceful, almost grateful. On his last night in apartment 3B, before finally moving out, Samuel stood in the center of the living room and whispered into the dark, "It's over. I hope you can rest." For a brief moment, the air felt warm, then still, completely, impossibly still, like the apartment finally exhaled. Peggy Lee Miller loved patterns. As a volunteer archivist for the county library, she spent her evenings digitizing old files, newspaper clippings, police bulletins, missing persons notices. She wasn't a detective. She wasn't even officially part of law enforcement. She was just someone who believed that everything connected if you looked closely enough. But some patterns aren't meant to be found, and the one Peggy uncovered should have stayed buried. It started with a simple curiosity. A man came into the library asking about an uncle who'd gone missing 27 years earlier. Peggy offered to help him search the archives, but as she pulled files, she noticed something strange. The missing persons reports from the late 90s, separate cases, separate families, separate circumstances, all came from 3 neighboring towns. And when she placed the locations onto a digital map, Her stomach knotted. The disappearances formed a perfect curve. She added more. From the 1980s, from the early 2000s, from 5 years ago. All different ages, different genders, different backgrounds, but every single one landed neatly along the same arc. Peggy dragged the map outward, connecting the curve. It formed a perfect circle, dead center over a thick forest stretching between the 3 towns. She zoomed in on the center point, a small uninhabited patch of woods, labeled only as Parcel 19, no public access. Peggy leaned back from her desk, heart thudding. No pattern was ever this clean. She spent the next 3 nights diving deeper, ignoring the ache in her eyes and the stiffness in her hands. She made a list. 43 people missing over 41 years. Different decades, different police departments, different search areas, but all radiating from the same point, as if they'd been pulled into something. On the 4th night, she uploaded her findings to a small true crime forum under a pseudonym. She didn't expect it to get attention. She didn't expect hundreds of upvotes. She definitely didn't expect the private message that followed. It came from an anonymous account created minutes before. Delete the map. Stop tracing the circle. Peggy's breath caught. How could they know? She typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came seconds later. "Turn off your lights." Peggy froze. Her fingers hovered uselessly over the keyboard. Her office was lit by a single lamp in the corner. She reached slowly toward the switch. Then her phone buzzed. Another message. "Don't turn around." Peggy didn't. She couldn't. Her skin prickled. Something felt wrong behind her, like the air itself had changed. Then the lamp flickered violently and went dark. She screamed, hit the power button on her computer, and sprinted out of the library, locking the door behind her with shaking hands. She didn't go back for 2 days. When she finally returned, the library felt watched. She kept telling herself she was exhausted, paranoid, imagining things. But when she logged into the forum, her post was gone. Her account had been erased. So had all her messages. Only one thing was left, an image file titled "Stop." When she opened it, her stomach clenched. It was a screenshot of her map, her exact map. But one new point had been added, a blinking red dot at the edge of the circle, her home address. Peggy packed a bag and went straight to Sheriff Rolfe's office. She explained everything. Her research, the map, the message, the creepy warning. He listened patiently, then sighed. "Peggy," he said gently, "I've been sheriff here 17 years. We've never had anything like what you're describing. I'm sure it's just someone online messing with you." She wanted to believe him. But as she stood up to leave, she noticed something on his desk, a folder marked "Unsolved, Missing Persons." On top of the pile, the face of a woman labeled case number 19-440. Portia Lee Sinclair, missing since 2019. Peggy recognized the location instantly. Portia had disappeared from the northern edge of the circle. She met the sheriff's eyes. He looked away too quickly. "Peggy," he murmured, "don't go looking for that place again." She went anyway. She couldn't not. Parcel 19 was deeper in the woods than she expected. No trails, no signs, no fences. Just trees pressed so tightly together that sunlight barely reached the forest floor. She checked her GPS. She was standing exactly at the circle's center. Nothing but silence. But then she noticed something strange. Small markings carved into a tree trunk. Fresh markings. A straight line. Another. Letters. 4 of them. PLM. Her initials, carved into wood that should have taken decades to scar. Her breath hitched. She stepped back, heart pounding, and her shoe hit something hard. A metal box. Old. Rusted. Buried shallowly, as if someone had started digging and never finished. Peggy's hands shook as she pried it open. Inside were dozens of items. a cracked watch, a wedding ring, a child's shoe, a torn jacket label. 43 personal belongings, one for each missing person. At the bottom of the box, a folded piece of paper with a map drawn on it, a circle, her circle, and at the edge of it, that blinking red dot. Her home. Only now, the dot had been crossed out, and a new dot was drawn, right where she was standing. Peggy dropped the box and ran. Branches tore at her hair, her clothes, her skin. She didn't stop until the forest thinned and the world burst open into daylight. She didn't go home. She didn't return to the library. She disappeared from every record, every routine, every place she'd ever been. They never found her car. They never found her phone. They never found Peggy Lee Miller. But the box is still somewhere in parcel 19. And on some nights, hikers swear they hear a woman calling for help deep in the trees. Her voice small, trembling, repeating the same words over and over. I shouldn't have looked. I shouldn't have traced it. I shouldn't have found the circle. If you enjoyed the video, press that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. Stay tuned for more great stories.